Hey guys, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up. In the month of September, I read a total of 9 books. It's been a crazy reading month. It started off like really high for me, and then it just progressively got worse, and I just didn't enjoy a lot of the last books I read. But in the beginning of the month, I read some of my new favorites, so let's just jump right into it. He keeps reminding me that you're still gone, and I'm still lonely. The first book I read this month was Emma in the Night by Wendy Walker. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sending me this as one of their September selections, and this book is an adult thriller. It follows these two sisters named Emma and Cass, and they both go missing on a beach, and then this takes place 3 years later when Cass finally returns home to tell the story of what really happened with her sister. This book goes into a great amount of detail about narcissistic personality disorder. This family is so fucked up and they have so many secrets. Really enjoyed it. It was very intense, very suspenseful. I couldn't predict where it was going. The one thing I had a major problem with though in this book is that it felt like it was doing a lot of telling instead of showing. We get to hear almost all of what happened to Emma and Cass from Cass's telling her family and telling the police about it, instead of like actually getting to see what actually happened. And it's like, after reading the story, I know why that is, but like I still felt like there was like a kind of disconnect there because I wanted to actually see those scenes happen. I didn't want to just hear about it from Cass for the entire book. And I didn't really love the detective's chapters in this. I feel like this book could have been stronger if there was chapters from Emma's perspective instead. I don't know. I just thought the chapters from Abby were like, they were interesting, but they were also kind of like slower to me. So I did end up giving this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it. I think it is a great thriller, but I did have a few problems with it. The second book I read this month was Lies She Told by Kate Houlihan. This is also a book that Book of the Month sent to me for September, and it's also an adult thriller. This book follows an author named Liza, and she's like a very successful thriller suspense writer, and she's feeling a lot of pressure from her fans and her agent to write the next great thriller because her last book didn't do so well. And so she starts writing about this girl named Beth who finds out that her husband is cheating on her and they have like a newborn baby. This book is a story within a story. You get to read Liza's new book, and you get to read about Liza's life, and in her own life, because her husband's best friend just went missing and he's a police officer, and she's like taking hormones because she's trying to have a baby, so they kind of, the hormones make her black out sometimes, and so she makes for a perfect unreliable narrator. And this book was so freaking good. It takes like her own story and her real life, and they just start blurring together and you can't really tell which is which anymore. It was just written so well. I loved it. It was so good. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's definitely one of my new favorite thrillers, so be sure to check this one out. It's really cool. The third book I read this month was The Way the Light Bends by Cordelia Jensen, and I wanted to say thank you so much to Cordelia Jensen for sending me an arc of this book. This book comes out in March next year, and so this book is another poetic verse story, and it follows this girl named Link who has an adopted sister named Holly. It really follows the family relationship between Link and her adopted sister and her mom, and like her mom is a doctor and she just has really high expectations of both of her daughters, but Link always feels like she's not living up to those expectations. Link decides to take a photography class and she pursues this relationship with this guy. I can't even remember his name. I think Cordelia Jensen is a fantastic writer. Like, she writes metaphors and poeticness so beautifully, and it just like brings on my emotions. But at the same time, I did have difficulty connecting with this main character, and I had a lot of problems with her immaturity. Just a lot of her decision making was pretty poor, and I know that that's for a reason, but I just personally couldn't connect with the story as much as I would have liked to, and as much as I connected with skyscraping. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars, and I actually did email back and forth with the author Cordelia Jensen and told her my honest opinions, and she really like took my opinion seriously, and she said she's like adjusting some of the things in the story. So I think that that's so freaking cool, and like honestly, she's one of the nicest people that I've met. The fourth book I read this month was Autobiography by Christina Lauren. Thank you so much to Kirsten Dwyer for sending me a copy of this. This is my most anticipated book of the year. I actually did do a full book talk on this book, so I'll be putting the link in the description. This was my favorite book of the month by far. Christina Lauren is one of my favorite authors, and this is their first young adult male-male romance that follows these two writers who are living in Utah, and this book also very closely follows the Mormon religion. So the main character's name is Tanner, and he's in his last year of high school, and he's taking a writing class. The point of the class is that you have to write an entire book within the last semester of high school. In that class, Sebastian is a TA for that class, and he was in the class last year and his book got published, so now he's like a published author. Sebastian happens to be extremely Mormon. He's the son of the bishop bishop. Tanner is not Mormon. He moved to Utah with his family. A romance starts to form between Tanner and Sebastian, and this book is just so important in the way it talks about religion and LGBT and how sometimes those don't really mesh. Everything about this book was so important and so cute, and Tanner and Sebastian's relationship was so innocent and so adorable, and I just love them together so much. And you can really tell when an author pours all their heart and soul into one book, and I think that this book was that for Christina Lauren, and I can't say enough about it, so just go check out my book talk to see all of my crazy feels over this book. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, only one of my favorites of the year. The 5th book I read this month was Fulltilt by Emma Scott, and thank you so much to my BFF Dylan for recommending this book to me. This book is a new adult romance that follows this girl named Casey, and she's a guitarist in her band that's like an up-and-coming, soon-to-be very successful band. She meets this man named Jonah, who just happens to be her limo driver for her band. Jonah happens to have this heart condition that's going to kill him within the next couple years, possibly. And that's not a spoiler or anything, it's like one of his main character traits, like you know this about him going into the book. As Dylan kind of said, I think this book is like a new adult version of The Fault in Our Stars. I mean, in the sense that there's this like death that they know is coming, hanging over them, but it's still like a really powerful love story. It just got so emotional, especially towards the end, and I wasn't expecting for this to like hit me in the gut as hard as it did towards the end. And it's just such a beautifully written story, and I really love the relationship between Jonah and his brother Travis. I just thought that they were so adorable. I love Jonah's character so much. Very powerful, and I loved it so much. I'm so glad I read it. There was this quote that really stuck with me. It was a Mark Twain quote, but it was mentioned in the book, and it just said, "A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." And I just thought that that was so beautiful, and it really stuck with me, and I ended up giving this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really, really, really loved it. The 6th book I read this month was We Own Tonight by Corin Michaels, and thank you so much to Corin Michaels for sending me a signed copy. Romance that follows Eli Walsh. He's the lead singer in what was once a huge successful boy band, and now this is like their reunion tour like 20 years later. He's like in his 40s, and then it follows this girl named Heather who's a police officer. Her and her best friends all decide to go to the reunion tour, and they get like the front row, I think. Eli sees her in the crowd, then they are insta in love. As you can probably tell from me describing this book, I didn't really enjoy this one, unfortunately. By page like 36, they were like already having sex, and I was just like, what? Like, I didn't realize how much I appreciate a build-up in a romance until I read something like this, where it's just like, he sees her in the front row and he's like, that's the girl of my dreams, you know? And it's just like, it's so cheesy, and this book has a shit ton of cliches, and I just couldn't connect with these characters at all. Unfortunately, Heather is one of those obnoxiously insecure girls. Eli would literally be like, you're beautiful, and then she would be like, I'm average. I hate girls that like won't just take the compliment and just have to be like, no, I'm not. Like, ugh. This story just wasn't for me. I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars. The 7th book I read this month is Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. Follows Lotto and Mathilde, who get married at the age of 22. The story just follows throughout their marriage and their life and what all that happens after and before that. I think that this book is written very beautifully, but it's also very boring, and I don't think it has much more going for it than the beautiful writing. These characters are very one-dimensional, I feel like. I couldn't connect with them. I didn't really know anything about them. The amount of times that Lotto talks about licking Mathilde's face is a little ridiculous. But I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't really like it very much. The 8th book I read this month was The Blackbird Season by Kate Moretti. Thank you so much to Atria Books for sending me this book in exchange for an honest review. This book is another adult thriller mystery novel that follows this student-teacher romance that's happening in this small town. Also, blackbirds fall from the sky randomly, and everybody thinks that the girl's a witch. It's kind of hard to explain what this book is. It's like this girl who starts telling everyone that she's sleeping with her teacher, even though it may or may not be true, and then it's about the teacher. It follows the teacher and his wife, and so this book kind of changes point of views and time periods really quickly and like frequently, and I had trouble keeping up with which character was which, with what time period certain things happened. But I feel like the main story in this book is happening with a student, Lucia. She's this like really dark girl who everybody thinks is like a witch, and like she claims that she's sleeping with her teacher, and I feel like the main story in this book is happening with Lucia, but we get to read this book from the perspective of Nate, who's the teacher, who is the one that's claimed to be sleeping with her, and from his wife, and they have an autistic son. You know, we get to see their fights over like, no, I didn't do it, whatever, but we don't really get to see a lot of what's actually happening with Lucia, who I feel like should have been the main character of this book because she was the most interesting. So at times it just felt like I was reading this book from a distance, like I'm reading everything that's happening to Lucia from the other characters' points of view, and it was just, it felt very like disconnected in that way. And also, like, it took me over a week to read this book, and like that never happens. Like, I was reading parts of it like every single day, and I just could not get through this. It took me forever. And also I got water damage on it. Backpack, my water bottle exploded, and it just ruined the bottom of this book, so that freaking sucked. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So yeah, I just thought that this book was overall kind of boring. I ended up giving this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. I liked it, I didn't love it, but I did like this one more than Kate Moretti's first book, The Vanishing Year. So the 9th book I read this month was Colorblind by Sierra Molly. This is a book that's been on my radar for quite some time now. This is a female-female romance that follows this girl named Harper who knows the age that people are going to die. And then she falls for this girl named Chloe, whose number is 16, so she's going to be dying within the year, and she only has months left, and she's trying to figure out how she can stop it and how she can change her number. Obviously, I thought this book sounded really cool. Basically, like how it works, I guess, now that I've read the book, I understand it a little bit better. She just walks around and she sees numbers on people's foreheads, and so like the number on their forehead is the age that they're gonna die, but she doesn't know what age she's going to die, even though I found that to be a little confusing. Like, couldn't she just look in a mirror? I don't know, maybe I'm getting too technical, but so obviously I thought this book sounded really interesting, and on top of that, it's a female-female romance, which I don't see a lot of and I don't read a lot of, unfortunately. The romance in this book just felt so insta-love. They become best friends like overnight, and then by the time they're only like 3 weeks into dating, they're talking about marriage and kids and everything, and it's just like, it just feels unrealistic for a 16-year-old relationship, you know? I don't know, I felt like it was very awkward and insta-lovey. I think the sci-fi aspect of this book with the numbers thing was definitely very underdeveloped. It wasn't talked about enough as much as I wanted it to be. I wanted to learn more about it and like understand why Harper can do this. Like, why? It's never really talked about why she can do this. It also got very repetitive with Harper's inner thoughts of being like, I can't get close to Chloe because she's gonna die soon, but like I want to be with her so bad, but like I can't because she's gonna die. Like, literally it repeats that thought process that she has, like, is mentioned every like 10 pages, and it just got very annoying towards the end. I was just like, oh my god, I get it, like you don't want to be with her because you're afraid to lose her, oh my god. Also, I thought the ending was so cringy and such a cop-out ending for a story like this. Could have had so much potential. It should have been amazing. I ended up giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't really my jam. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of September. As I said, I mean, I started off the month pretty well. Towards the end of the month, I just started getting a lot of books in a row that I didn't really like. In October, I'm really excited to hopefully read more thrillers. Like, that's my plan. Like, October is obviously like my thriller month. And I just got sent Stephen King's newest book, Sleeping Beauties, that he wrote with his son, from Book of the Month, because it's one of their October picks. So super excited to read this, even though it is 700 pages, so we'll see if I get through that. Really looking forward to October, and hopefully in October I can make a new thriller recommendations video, because I did that last year and I wanted to do a new one. And this month was also really cool because I went to a Coldplay concert for the first time, and I saw them in Seattle, and it was freaking amazing. There were just so many fireworks and colors and like amazing music and energy, and it was just so great. How was your guys' month? How many books did you read? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys next time.
She keeps reminding me that you're still gone and I'm still lonely.